Okay, Saturday, 18th of May, 2024. So, understand Pareto's law, Pareto's principle. The vast majority of things come from the minority of things. 80-20. There's that classic 80-20 trope now, I guess. 80% of headaches will come from 20% of clients. 80% of customers will come from 20% of adverts. 20% of sales will come from 80% of these products, for example. 20% of the work will come from 80% of the employees. Different variations like that. All sorts of combinations here, there, this, that, whatever. But it's worth understanding and being aware about that in life, because then you can root out and also you can predict potential problems you will have. For example, with my clients over the past nearly 2 years now, I never really had any problems or issues or headaches, let's say, with any. So let's say in this case, zero headaches, no headaches, great. But there was one particular client that gave me an issue. Okay, so then we could say that 20%, not even that, like 2% of headache, one of the headaches came from like one client. Okay, but the vast majority of the clients, no problem whatsoever. No issues, back and forth, paid, move on, happy chappy, good days. But I knew that there'd be one mathematically guaranteed, I'll have a problem with one of them. And it was this one over here. Fair enough. Dealt with, moved on, whatever else, that's another conversation. Because in that situation, I wanted them to reject me as opposed to me rejecting them for business reasons and for more social dynamic reasons. But that goes beyond this video. When you understand that potentially 80% of headaches could come from 20% of clients, or 80% of profits can come from 20% of products over here, then you know what to target, what to focus on, what to build, what to achieve, what to create. If these products over here are not selling anything, not making any money, then why would you be supporting them, practically speaking? Okay, if these ones are working, then follow what the market is telling you. These make money, those don't, focus on them. Fair enough. It's a signal, it's a market signal from the market, or even in some ways the universe. And I don't mean that in a hocus pocus way, as in like a way of amalgamating the entire atomic world and saying this is the outcome, follow it. If the math is pointing towards this, because it's that 20% of the 80 or 80% of the 20, then focus on that. And also understand, like with the client I mentioned and talked about a minute or so ago, you can predict what kind of problems you will have. Like, for example, for a business, I have a few Facebook adverts, and I knew from day one that I can tell that 80% of these adverts will not be working, not be hitting the goals, and 20% of them will. 80% of the results will come from 20% of the adverts. Okay, I knew that was the case. I knew that would be the case. It was more of a question of which one, the technicalities, specifics, why this one, why not that one, the details, the wording, the price, you name it, technicalities, specifics. Fair enough. But I went into it knowing that that was going to happen. It was a question of when and which. And all I had to do was be patient, and the data would reveal itself. The universe, the atoms, the maths, the results, the people, the clients would reveal themselves, and then all I do is act accordingly. Fair enough. Okay. Now also, there's another interesting law worth understanding about called Zipf's law. Zipf's law, ZIPFS law. And it talks about that when you have a series of values, different aspects, different numbers, or different things, so let's say words in the alphabet. Most common words in English. All these different words, the 100 most common words in English, all these. The number one word will be used, say, 99% of the time, and the second most common word will be used, say, 45% of the time, and the third, 25%, and the fourth, 12%. And the fifth, sixth, seventh will all be variations of that. So 12 and 8 and 6 and 5 and 6 and whatever else. So there's a massive descending, long-tailed chart of all these things that are, in this case, the words that are used in English language. That means that the vast majority of words that we use on a daily basis are going to be all these right over here, the 20%. The 20% of words over here, and there's a mathematical evidence to say, okay, this one's used 99% of the time, and then 45, then 25, and etc. They're all right here, these words here, and all the rest, the long tail, the vast majority, but the small in quantity, value, but loads of them. These are used sporadically throughout the day, here and there, and there'll be some words, I can guarantee this mathematically, that you would use one day a year, one day a month. You would just say once a year, because it's so unusual, so rare, you would never come across it, you never use it, whenever you even see it. But mathematically speaking, once a year. Now, worth understanding Zimf's law, because then you can understand what is most prevalent in a system. Take the Facebook adverts. I know that if I use this video here, I'll get the vast majority of results, and this one less so, and this one less so, and this one less so, and all these over here are so small and minuscule, they're not worth using, although the video quality could be better, the production, or what I say or what I do could be just as unique as over here, but for some reason, in terms of the target audience, which is ultimately here, when dealing with humans, who are ultimately emotional things, emotional creatures, this video over here did well and that one didn't. And how can I prove that? In the data behind the scenes. And that's the world, the universe, the atoms materializing the result through all sorts of cause and effect relations and all sorts of things happening. And here's the result on the dashboard, the maths. And then we say, right, this advert is producing 80% of the results. All these ones over here, not worth it. Not worth putting a single penny into them, just put it into this one. Because that penny goes much further over here than it would be with any of these. And that's in part also from Pareto's law. The vast majority of results will come from a minority of things. The vast majority of headaches will come from a minority of people. The vast majority of accidents will happen on the road, will happen at this particular time and this particular street. The vast majority of hangovers will be on this particular morning. Fair enough. The vast majority of, even down to supermarkets, the vast majority of people will go to a supermarket on these few days, Friday or Saturday or Sunday. They're less likely to go on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday or Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because life, commitment, other things. But on a Friday, yeah, tick the box. Saturday or Sunday, yeah, for the next week, by all means. There will be all sorts of things out there that when you look, you will see this 80-20 dichotomy, this dance almost. However, what I've subtly noticed, and this is through experience, is that you will, even though the numbers are not exact, 80-20, 21-19, for example, 21-79, you will still find ways to excuse it and say it's still Pareto's rule, Pareto's law. Even if the numbers are 50-50, you will still, I guess you got to try and avoid this trap, this mental trap where it's still 80-20, even though mathematically it's 50-50. So that's why I think, taking a step back, I think the numbers are a little arbitrary, because it's like, well, 75-25. Like, well, it's not quite 80-20, but it basically is. Where do you draw the line? What if it's 95-5? Is that Pareto's law still? I mean, the principle is still the same and it's still sound. The minority of something comes from the majority, or the majority results in the minority in some variation. It's still sound. But the numbers, in terms of the law itself, they're a bit, well, wishy-washy. They're a bit, where do you draw the line? And that's more of the human element behind it. 70-30. Yeah, well, it's kind of like it, but is it really 60-40? Well, and it's that aspect which is not mathematical, not scientific. It's that human element again. It's like, well, it's kind of like it, but not the same. Yeah, kind of, more or less. But that's a complete different way of looking at it, because that then kind of implies a human element of estimation and guesstimation. Guess and estimate, guesstimation. Fair enough. But the principle, the core principle, still sound. It is still sound and is valid. It kicks in all the time. 80% of results, for example, will come from 20% of the adverts, and vice versa, all kinds of variations. And it's worth understanding that when going into business and in life. 80% of women on the dance floor will reject 80% of men. Oh, for example, you name it, any combination, any plausible scenario, and you think, well, 80-20 is applicable here. This is potential outcome, that's a potential outcome, this is a potential outcome. And when you can predict those potential outcomes, bring it all back down on the video, the point, you can predict the future easier. Just how I started those Facebook adverts, I thought, well, I know that 20% of these are going to be successful, 80% aren't going to be. When I started with the clients, I predicted that 20% of them will give me 80% of headaches, basically. There we are. We can predict the future, we can give potential scenarios. And when we have potential scenarios, we can navigate the future easier. We can build contingencies, backup plans, and get ready. We know what to say and do from day one to avoid it happening in the future. That's powerful. Very powerful, thinking steps ahead. The more steps into the future we can think, the better, because we can avoid problems. We can plan ahead. And planning ahead, means fewer disasters. And that's priceless. And that's worth the time and energy and effort in avoiding it in the first place. Yeah. But otherwise, you will see me tomorrow.